Hi, Kyra. It's nice to meet you. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Excited to talk with you. I'm a big horror fan, especially of the films of the 80s, and Chucky just happens to be just as old as I am.
Oh, are you born in 88?
Yeah, 88.
Oh, very cool.
So I love the documentary, and I know that a lot of it's interesting because I really just was glued to the TV when you got more to your personal side of the story, because I'm very familiar with Chucky's background, but and to know how personal and almost familiar. I know you guys mentioned him as a brother. He was to you. It was a fascinating story. Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
The film or like that aspect of
The
it?
film.
Okay. Yeah, it originated as a short story or short documentary that I did in film school during my time at FSU. And that one, though, could only be 7 minutes in length. And obviously, I couldn't tell an entirely long story with that. So that short version really had to hone in on one thing, which I decided to be the familial aspect of the franchise and more so of just like our experiences around it. So when I was done the festival circuit with that short and it received such positive attention, I was like, okay, this has to be a feature and this has to be the thread line, because this is what's different than most horror documentaries, is like the personal aspect, because I don't think too many people within the franchise itself are the ones that are truly like have their hand on the entirety of the documentary, whereas like this was just like something I fell into that I could really have the opportunity to tell something more personal with.
Yeah, completely. And it's a perspective that I had never heard in a documentary before. Uh, what were some of the things maybe down the line as you're interviewing all these people that were so close to your father that maybe started clicking some memories like, oh, that's why that was that way, or oh, that explains this moment.
Yeah, it's not in the documentary, but we talked about it. When David Kirshner was going to do Bride of Chucky, he had already worked on Hocus Pocus with my dad, and he asked my dad if he could do a wedding cake topper of Chucky and Tiffany on a wedding cake, and that's what he was going to use to help pitch the idea to Universal. And I remember seeing a snippet of Bride of Chucky as a kid, like very young, but I just remembered this snippet of a movie. I didn't know it was Bride of Chucky at the time. Terrorized my dreams and gave me nightmares for so many months. And now, having interviewed everybody, it was my dad was watching Bride of Chucky as a reference. Not, I don't think it was for doing Seed at the time because I was too young, but I think it was for him doing the cake topper, I think,
Interesting.
or something like that. It was just yeah, or it was for Seed, but there's this whole cake topper thing where my dad was involved with Child's Play before actually being brought on for Seed. And it was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense that there was like Chucky things before he actually was doing Seed.
It's interesting. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and we do a lot of conventions together and things like that. And when she was little, she all of the special effects that I would have her around convinced her that zombies were real.
Oh
Uh,
no.
and I'm curious, how would your father explain some of the things that he maybe brought home to you when you were little to try and rationalize it?
Uh, a lot of the stuff that he would bring home, we also got to see him make if we'd come. So we would be able to see that it was fake. Like, like this is silicone and this is foam, things like that. I'm trying to remember if there was anything like specific, probably a block too much out of my childhood
Oh no.
to really remember, because a lot of my memories are from middle school onward. But yeah, like Chucky kind of started out as a Halloween decoration, like in my kid mind, because my dad would bring Chucky out every Halloween. as part of like the decor with Tiffany. And eventually when I was old enough, my dad's fake head would be in the mix from Seed of Chucky. And it was kind of like a prop almost. So it wasn't as scary. And then I think as time went on, it was like, okay, now you can, well, I snuck a Chucky DVD to my friend's birthday party. So that was actually my introduction to it. But so after that very traumatizing moment of watching my dad die in a movie, I think was the impetus for sitting down and being like, okay, let's talk about movie magic and what's actually real. Because obviously your dad is not dead.
Yeah, I can't imagine how that's not something I would, even if it's fake, that you'd want a visual representation of, correct?
Yeah, and my dad, it's not in the documentary, but my dad at one point joked about when like he had the fake head from Seed, he wanted to like joke that he fell down the stairs
Oh
and like
no.
roll the head down the stairs and be like, oh no. And then he was like, but I think that would just mean more therapy for you guys. So he was like, I decided against it. And I'm like, I'm glad you did, because that would have been crazy.
That would been horrible. Yeah. Throughout your journey in making this documentary, you got to talk to some very iconic people when it comes to the Chucky franchise. What was your biggest takeaway in the way that they describe working with your dad?
Um, that, oh gosh, that's a good question. Mm, that they know that he is just as much of the character as Brad is. Like, I don't think the general public understands how important the puppeteers are and how much is involved in it. And like, hopefully this documentary sheds light on that, of how involved it is, but they are just as much of Chucky as Brad is the voice of Chucky. And I think everybody in talking about my dad is like aware that this is important and how hard it is. And yeah, like appreciative.
And it seems like given the times most of this cast has returned, and also just the way that they speak about the Chucky franchise, people like Brad, like Jennifer, Don, and then a growing family, of course, recently. What is it about the character, about the franchise, that you think that has made it so beloved?
I Well, first of all, they created a fantastic look for a character. That sweater and those overalls and the red shoes and the red hair is just like an aesthetically pleasing look that's iconic. As well as like Chucky's a character that has humor and personality, and unlike, you know, Freddie, or not Freddie, sorry, Jason or Michael Myers, who don't say anything. Chucky is a full-fledged character despite only being 3 feet tall. And also it was a franchise that wasn't afraid to take chances on going the comedic route, and then taking the feedback from the fans and being like, okay, that wasn't received well in 2004. Let's go back to trying to make it scary, and really involving the fans in the process of the franchise. I think is really unlike a lot of other franchises. And it's also a character that you can kind of not, I don't want to say see yourself in a murderous doll or anything like that, but it's a character where the odds are stacked against him. He's an adult and he's 3 foot tall, and that rhymes. And he a lot of the times will go for authority figures, and sometimes characters that we want to die. And you can't actually go murder somebody in real life, but you're like, you kind of can be like, okay, Chucky, I understand why you did that, or things like that. So it's a character a lot of people could see themselves in, of like having a disadvantage at some things in life. Whereas like, I can't see myself in a 6-foot man in a mask who's just murdering people. I can't relate to that at all. Whereas Chucky has a personality and a like status that we could all somehow relate to in a weird way.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. So after so many years with Chucky and being around Chucky, to you personally, what does the doll, what does the franchise mean to you in this day and age?
It's weird to look at it objectively because it's so ingrained into my life. Um, but it's like what Jennifer says is like a classic never goes out of style. Is kind of the epitome of the franchise. Like we've been able to, well, I don't work on it. They've been able to, transcend so many different decades, and now bringing it to like a newer generation of kids is so cool that we don't see often in like iconic horror
Hmm.
characters, where now this new generation gets to grow up with it the same way as the kids in the 80s did. So to me, it means like also the fact that a lot of it is practical. For me, it means that there's still a space in cinema for practical horror effects and a love and appreciation on the other end of it. So that's what that means to me. And the fact that they all get to keep working together after so long is so awesome. And I hope they get to do it until they can't. Until they think
Yeah,
that they can't.
definitely. It is one of the few horror icons that's been able to transcend decades now and still be beloved and still get people excited. As for your film, what are you hoping people take away from your journey and being able to share that with them?
I hope people take away a newfound appreciation for just what goes into it. I think a lot of the times, as audiences, especially those not involved in filmmaking or the arts themselves, it's easy to write off as like, oh, it's a movie with a killer doll, like Big Whoop or something like that, and a kind of naive approach. But in reality, it's people, family, husbands, wives being separated for much longer than your average movie, especially now with the TV show, to bring you that entertainment and to bring this thing that is an inanimate object to life after so long. I hope people get to learn a little bit more about the franchise if they're new, and hopefully there's still some fun things in there for older horror Chucky fans who have been with it and watched so many behind the scenes, but also just like an appreciation for these people as people within the franchise of like what they have done to continue to make these, especially when the budgets were cut, especially when it went to like video on demand. Like they're only here because of the fans, yes, but also because they all sacrificed so much in their personal lives to continue to do it.
Yeah, awesome. Howard, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the film. I had fun with it, and I'm sure there's going to be many, many horror fans out there that will do the same.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching it.